Welcome to Operational Harmony, Balancing Business and Mental Well-Being, a podcast with honest discussions about professional life and mental well-being in a natural conversational way. Your host is Nikki, founder of Nikki's Office, where she supports entrepreneurs through operations, systems, and strategy. And now, let's hear from our guest.
All right. Hi, I'm Angela Mitchell.
And I'm James Mitchell.
And we're the co-founders of Love Intentionally. We are a relationship coaching company that helps entrepreneurs stay happily married. So I've been a counselor for 20-something years, which makes me feel older than I think I am.
I've been an entrepreneur since I was 11, and I've been in coaching for the last 6 years. I think mental health really affects how we show up in our business more than necessarily how our business affects our mental health, although they are quite related.
There's a blurred line going either way from there.
Yeah, as I said it out loud, I was like, ooh, that one scribbles across the lines pretty often.
Yeah, a lot of people don't notice the blurred lines until it's too late.
Yeah, good point.
Oh no, I don't have nothing wrong with my business, with my mental health. Yeah, then why are you burnt out so bad?
All right. Since the time I was little, I've wanted to help people. Right? I'm like one of those helper people in the world. I think that means I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, if you've ever taken that assessment. And yeah, and it's really morphed over the years. I started in trauma, so working with survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, obviously PTSD and a lot of things there that were pretty intense. And then I decided I wanted to go a little upstream from that and start working with kids. So really giving kids the idea being if I can catch them while they're young and help give them some of the tools and skills to manage emotions, to deal with things as they come up, to manage conflict, to be able to express their needs, all this stuff, then maybe they would grow into healthier adults that are able to have healthier relationships. And I still think that's true. I think that is a lot. And then at some point, I also realized that kids come from homes with adults in them and that those adults really affect the kids' mental health and their skills and all of that. And so I feel like I just keep swimming upstream to try to get more to the root. And I could probably do that forever because there'll always be something more upstream of where I'm at. And I really enjoyed switching to working with couples and adults on their mental health, on their relationships, because I do really feel that the home, whatever the home is, where so much of the groundwork takes place for our mental health, for our relationships. Obviously, then those down the road affect our business. But yeah, just really, and also realizing that adults, we do have the agency to change our situation. Right? Sometimes we need new skills to do that, or we need some work to do that, but we do have the agency to change things, whereas kids are kind of stuck in the environment, unless it's really bad, that they're in. And yeah, so I've just found it refreshing to work with adults, and usually the ones coming to us are wanting some sort of change, so they're willing and able participants to create better patterns for themselves, healthier mindsets, which then affects their relationships, it affects their business, it affects their parenting, it affects all these other areas of their life, when they really take charge of an ownership for their own emotional health, mental health, well-being.
There are a lot of people walking around with trauma that they don't realize is trauma. And I'm not one of those people like, oh, you don't know your own memories. No, just your life was so crap, you didn't know what was normal. And now you're walking around thinking that's how life is supposed to be. And then you have kids, and while you try not to treat your kids the same way as what your parents treated you, because you thought that family life was normal, you may fall into some of the same patterns. How would you start to try to change some of that?
Yeah, I think that's a good realization that, and we do this thing, right, sometimes where we do this like comparative suffering, right? My parents didn't hit me, so my childhood was fine. It wasn't that bad. And that's great. I'm glad that person's parents didn't hit them. And that doesn't mean that there weren't unhealthy coping mechanisms, strategy, whatever that might have been happening in the home. Or even if it wasn't happening in the home, sometimes it was, or with a parent, it could have been a sibling that was fairly emotionally or physically abusive and For some reason with siblings, we seem to think it's okay if they hit each other or say really mean things to each other. Or it could be peers at school, right? They were bullied or whatever. And so I think the realization is that we can't really go through the human experience without incurring some sort of hardship, right? Whatever that might be. It could have been financial. Maybe your parents were sweet and loving, but you were worried about where your next meal was going to come from, right? There's just all sorts of ways that we go through hardship. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Like it's how we build resiliency. It's how we get to know ourselves better, how we learn, grow, all these things. So I don't think hardship is always bad or negative, but we've all experienced it. And what I do think can become problematic is when it's unexamined, right? When we don't really look at how it's affecting us, how it's showing up in how we operate, how we are in relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship or our coworkers or family, friends, neighbors, whatever. When it's unexamined, then we can, like you're saying, get into those just default patterns, right? We don't even realize we're doing it, but we're just repeating the model that we saw growing up. And two things usually can happen there. It's either that we just repeat it, or we can like react against it and go the opposite way, right? So let's say we had a parent that we found really controlling, right? They were always control our behavior, maybe reading our diary, whatever. Then we either grow up and start doing that as well in our relationships with our romantic partners, kids, whatever, or we react against it and we stay like really private and no one's allowed in. And so either way, it's an unexamined result to a reaction to how we grew up. And when we're not aware of it, we don't get to decide if it's serving us or not. Because sometimes those patterns aren't serving us. And oftentimes we develop these defense mechanisms around whatever happened, right? So we learn to be really protective and private and reserved and keep our heart closed because we don't want people invading. And that might have worked really well as a child when we were trying not to get hurt by our caregivers or whoever. But then as an adult, staying closed off to the world and relationships may no longer be serving us. So what was a brilliant strategy when we were a child may no longer be working, and when it's unexamined, we don't even realize that. So we just keep operating on that autopilot.
Yeah.
So what would you be doing as first steps to get out of that?
Oh, first step. Thank you. Bring me back to the question. So I think some of it is to look at those things. It could even just be, obviously, as a counselor myself, I'm a proponent of getting help because there's that idea we can't always read the label from the inside of a bottle, right? You need that outside perspective. So I do think having counselor, coach, even a best friend, whatever that can help you show you your blind spots is really helpful. If you don't have the resources for that or that's not available, even just some journaling exercises on pick a topic. What was I taught growing up about marriage? What was I taught growing up about parenting? Really looking at from the lens, it could be from our own family. It could be what we saw in the Disney movies. It could be, whatever we saw on the cover of 17 magazine, those horrible magazines when I was a child.
Or Maxim.
Or Maxim, yeah. But what are the messages I got? And then we like to do this activity we'll sometimes do with clients where we really outline all that. What was I taught? And then what of those things do I want to keep? What of those things were valuable maybe? Maybe my parents really showed me that they're going to handle conflict head on. They're not going to hide from it. They're not going to avoid it. And I want to do that. I don't want to avoid conflict. So I'm going to keep that, right? But then what things do I want to get rid of as well?
I'm going to distill that down into awareness and radical responsibility. One is the awareness that, sure, I might not have big T trauma, but there's a few little T's in there that are holding me back in certain ways, and that's the awareness, right? Journaling can bring that. And then a radical responsibility and ownership over doing something about it. And that can look a million different ways, and it usually becomes clear once that responsibility and that ownership is taken.
So, what are your guys' first steps? What do you guys do first? Because if somebody has, like I said, some people don't even know they have the trauma, but they're coming to you and they're saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, I'm too stupid for this, I'm too stupid for that. And that too stupid thing sometimes comes from a parent who constantly said, you're too stupid to do that. Why are you even trying? Or you're not good enough for that. Why do you even want to try? Or they proved it through silence. And sometimes when you have that, when it's proven through silence, it's not a one-time thing, right? It's not we got in an argument and that person said it was stupid. It's done over and over again, silently or gaslightingly, and you don't see it until later on when somebody goes, that's not normal.
Yeah. My family, I'm one of 4 kids, and each one of us has more than 2 stories about how hanging out with our dad almost got us killed. Whether it was like
usually just through not
just
thinking
being
through
around
things.
horses, going out, whatever. He wasn't aggressive in his
truck.
stretch, but just like growing up around him, he's a cowboy. And one day our friends were like, "That's not normal." And to that point, I thought everybody had near-death experiences with their dad. Right?
Yeah.
Brings us closer together. To your question, where we start is there's a deconstruction process. People come to us and we're really, where are we going to go? So that's first and foremost. What's our end goal? What's the X marks the spot for this desire to work and to grow? And the first thing we do is deconstruct. What's been happening? Tell us about it.
What are the patterns that are keeping you stuck?
We can identify the patterns, then we can at least bring more awareness to how these things have been playing out for them. The second phase goes into the reconstruction. That's where we really lean also into the vision. Like, how do you want to feel? Where do you see yourself going? And what is going to help us get there? And while the deconstruction phase does involve, and Angela holds a lot of counseling space for that, the reconstruction is when the coaching hats come on quite a bit more. Bringing out their best and highest version, giving them permission to speak their highest desires, right? Their greatest desires and who they want to be, how they want to show up. Once we can create that in step 2, we move on to step 3, which is let's start implementing these things. In order to become the person you've wanted to be, it is required to shed old identities and old patterns. So under the care of coaches who are going to hold you accountable to your greatness, we're able to give them small steps at first and small bites and small exercises to start to implement what and who they need to be in order to step into that vision for the reconstruction.
And these are really like actionable items, right? I'll give an analogy. We're dealing with emotions mostly in relationships. If you want to be a marathon runner, like first step, you should probably get some running shoes, right? So it's just, what are the steps that are going to help me get to where I want to go?
Which then usually is like, that brings up the emotion in the way. And so these little steps help us really get to the root about how they are holding themselves back and where. So a lot of implementation, a lot of practicing, a lot of trying on new hats, a lot of exploring, a lot of permission to step into new identities and not be the old self anymore, which can be a little hard and crunchy, right? If you've said yes all the time, the first time a person says no, it's, oh my gosh.
Might be struck by lightning.
Right.
Yeah.
So
The world may end.
we can test out. And then in essence, we like to view our work as medicine, not medication. And so then that's where the sustain is. How can we create a sustainable path for you to continually wake up and choose to be this newer version of yourself with better mental health, better clarity, better vision, and better energy to step into your highest version?
Because really, it's like to the medication point, right? We don't want to just mask the symptoms. That's what I think a lot of people do on their own, right? It's, okay, how can I just
say affirmations out loud? Just, I got this. I'm the best. Let me just speak these things. And that doesn't necessarily, if a person doesn't believe that, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so it's just coping, masking, and we want to get to the root, right? To heal the root, to get the splinter out of the toe, not just keep putting a Band-Aid on the splinter.
Yeah. There's such a thing as toxic positivity where everybody's, oh no, everything's fine. It's fine. And the house is burning down. No, everything is not fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell everyone, I'm telling the person at the grocery store that I'm fine because the person at the grocery store doesn't need my story at all. So there's that. But you also should be able to take your mask off with somebody. And if you can't, finding a somebody is very important.
What I hear you saying is giving yourself a space to be fully seen. This is me without my mask, without my coping mechanisms, without my impenetrable optimism or toxic positivity. This is me. And from that that's the root of the awareness and the willing to step in and take radical ownership over where you want to go.
Radical
acceptance is
ownership
great
and
too.
All the
radical ownership and responsibility. So with that, we have a lot of people today who will lie about anything, who will put whatever they've done on somebody else, or they lie to themselves and they're like, no, I had the most awesomest childhood ever. And they didn't, because you happen to know their parents, and that's just not something they were capable of doing. And so I'm not a big fan of liars. And to me, you lie when you lie to yourself about how you are, because that stops you from being able to move forward. If you cannot say that you have gone through trauma or whatever in your past and you have gotten to a point where you're ready to move forward, the chains are still there and you're not going to be able to move forward because you haven't done anything. There's a lot of people nowadays who think that it is perfectly okay to sit in their mental health. And to me, that's like sitting in a dirty diaper. You have all this crap, you're doing all these bad things, you have so many triggers that make you scream at just about anybody. And then you go home and you tell yourself that you had a great day because you did it your way, and nobody can tell you that you did anything bad. Because you have mental illness and you did it as best you could. That's bull. Right? You're lying to yourself, and you have just attacked like however many people, especially if you've turned into a Karen. You've screamed at people throughout your day. You've cried maybe throughout your day. And then you come home and you're like, no, that was a perfectly normal day. I have news for you. It is not normal to just start screaming at people, even though I want to sometimes. It is not normal to just start crying all day long because somebody said either your hair looked pretty or it looked bad. Either way, some people are weird, myself included, so don't take anything. But so you get to that point where you're like, no, I have a mental illness. I get to sit right here and I don't have to work on myself. What do you say to that? I said that kind of long, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think there's this ability for this like both and thing to happen where it's like James was saying, we want to take that radical ownership for our own stuff, right? How we are choosing to work with it, how we are choosing to learn and grow and do things different and become that higher version of ourselves. And that is really important. And provided we're doing that, to give ourselves some grace as well, not beat ourselves up for not getting it perfect. And I think what you're saying is like the people that almost give like all the grace and no ownership, right? Oh, it's just who I am, that's just how I show up, I can't help it. And I think there needs to be, to healthily make change, I think there needs to be both, right? Like I need to be working and trying and doing new things and have the self-awareness and doing things about it, and also give myself grace when I fall short. Because if I beat myself up too much every time I don't get it perfectly, it'll also cause me to lose momentum in making the change, right?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yeah, so that's how I would answer that. I don't know if you have anything to add.
I heard this thing a while ago about, right, if I have a trigger and she hits it, I'm like, why did you hit that trigger? That was the initial thing. If I've got this situation, walking around, somebody tells me my hair looks good, which I get a lot. Oh, that's a trigger. I'm like, watch out for my trigger. It's not their job to watch out for my trigger at all. And that was a challenging one for me, especially in my most, I'm like, this thing exists, watch out. But then all of a sudden I create a situation where she's on eggshells. It's not a good household. And then at the end of the day, what that leaves, when left unchecked, it'll leave me and my little like victim, like, why won't she just love me the way that I am? Nobody loves all of me. I'm not allowed to be my full expression of self. And now I'm a victim of my own doing and my own trigger, right? But at the bottom line, it's not safe. If I'm going to potentially blow up at any given moment and we're on eggshells around you and we're operating ourselves like being mindful of your triggers and mental illness, like that's not a safe relationship to be in. And I'll bet you at the core, I think everybody wants to be loved and give love in a full way that's received and seen and appreciated. Right. And so these people or anybody who walks around in that situation where I'm using my mental illness as an excuse, you're leaving a lot of love off the table that could be there if only you wouldn't use it as an excuse, but take some ownership of it and maybe just apologize sometimes when it pops up instead of defend it.
Yeah. And there's also the people who have way too many triggers. Like, you can't have everything be a trigger and then expect everybody to watch out for them. For me, I have issues if I'm around old people, old men. I still can be around them, but I'm watchful and careful and a little bit more situational awareness is happening. But that doesn't mean that if somebody brings somebody old near me, I'm going to freak out and be like, why would you bring my trigger here? Old men exist. They have since the beginning of time. Maybe not. I don't know how that worked. But they've existed for a very long time. And in some communities, there's a lot of them. And so dealing with them is something that I have learned to do. Am I trusting them? No. Am I going to go up to one and hug them? Absolutely not. But I don't hug anybody, so that's not a kick on him either. But I am going to make sure that I know where they are and that I am keeping myself safe. That doesn't mean that anybody else around me is being affected by what I'm doing. But if at the same time I say I have a trigger about loud noise, I do have a trigger about loud noises, but again, headphones. But let's say I have a trigger about loud noises. I have a trigger if it gets too quiet. I have a trigger about food. I have a trigger about this. I have a trigger about that. I have a trigger about this. You start having handfuls of triggers and nobody can keep all of them straight. Now, if you have allergies, that's completely different. And I don't care how many you have, people in your life should know them and keep aware of them. But with triggers, I'm not saying don't have any triggers, like that's stupid, because you have to work through them in order to get rid of them in the first place. But I question how hard you're working, or if you're working at all, if you have too many for people to keep track of.
What's coming up for me is we've got these levels, right? So if we have somebody with a lot of different mental illness or challenges in that department, trauma, and they're really working through it, we have to get somebody to at least like their head above water to be able to work and really have the ability to operate, I'm going to use the word normally in society, right? Yeah. Whatever that really looks like, right?
Air quotes, yeah.
Yeah, to operate in a space where you can function and be around and enjoy your life, right? So if we're under that baseline, right, I feel like that's one level. Right, and honestly, that's not where we deal with, right? Deal with the people that have their heads somewhat above, they're above water, they're floating on the water, but they want to get out of it, they want to get up. And so we start talking about I'm going to use like the typical neuro person, right? Somebody who's neurotypical. They also have triggers, right? And so if there's a lot, they can usually go to counseling and usually do something that's going to help them to heal what those are so they can now be able to accelerate and move to a higher level.
I like to think of triggers as, I feel like all of our feelings, but triggers are the big ones, it's like our emotional guidance system, right? So when we feel triggered, to me, it's like a red flashing light saying, hey, there's a thing here that needs some work. Right? And so and oftentimes our triggers might be a slightly different situation, but it's the same trigger that keeps getting hit, right? One of my triggers is this not enoughness thing. Comes from childhood, we don't have to go into the backstory, but it might pop up in different situations, but it's that same not enough feeling that comes up, right? That comes up enough that's where I get tuned into, that part of me needs some work, needs some help, needs some love. Usually love is. And so then when I'm experiencing triggers, my job is to go inside and go, okay, where is that coming from and what is that part of me needing right now? So like for me, it's like little 10-year-old Angela, right? She's needing some love. She's like trying to get attention or feeling like not enough or whatever it is. And I need to like follow that guidance, pay attention to that trigger. And then I can do some of my own healing by just following those breadcrumbs to that trigger and giving it what it needs.
The word curiosity is coming to mind. And so if somebody's, what do I even do to begin that journey? Just have some curiosity around what's happening inside of your body. And just that's it. Simple as that.
Sometimes the question, and I'll ask clients this when we're working, is if I have an emotion come up, one of those triggers usually create a big emotion in our bodies, is thinking about when is the first time I remember feeling that way? And the first time we can remember feeling that way, maybe we were 7, maybe we were 13, maybe we were in diapers and it's one of our earliest memories. But whatever that was, that is often where I want to go and give that little version of myself some love or attention or whatever she was needing in the moment. But that can be just a curious question to ask yourself. When do I first remember feeling this way? There might be more than one time.
Yeah. Okay. So what has been your favorite experience with a client? When they finally got that aha moment or something like that. It's like your favorite moment without client confidentiality being there.
I've got a couple.
Yeah, to pop up. So to your point, they're aha moments, right? It's
Yeah.
watching that breakthrough happen, which typically, and I'm going to use the word always in this case, happens after a breakdown. The breakthrough happens after the breakdown. And so when we're able to work with a couple and deconstruct and watch them and hold them through the breakdown so they can experience the breakthrough. There was a couple that we were working with. They came to a retreat of ours, and we ended up coaching them after that. They've been together for over 40 years, and they're having a situation with an elderly parent that had moved in and had been there for about 7 years longer than anticipated. And it was really starting to cause a lot of tension in an otherwise really happy marriage. And there was just this aha moment where they realized it wasn't about their new roommate or the time of that roommate. It was about, really the tension was, this is supposed to be our time. I want more of you. I want more of our time. We raised our kids. This is supposed to be for us. And I feel like we're missing it.
Yeah. So they were stuck fighting on the surface about the in-law living with them. And when we just went under the surface, we were able to see, and they were able to see in each other, which was a beautiful thing, that the tension was really because they loved each other and wanted more time together. And when they were able to see that was what was underneath it, it was like the anger around it really started to melt and go, oh, actually this person loves me and just wants to spend more time with me. That's sweet.
In fact, we want the same thing.
Yeah.
And they became back on the same team. And that's probably the theme, because the second one that I love is a couple that had been married, separated, decided to go all in and get back together, and they wanted to have kids. And they, in their separation and coming back together, hadn't yet figured out how to reconsummate with intimacy at all. If you want to have a baby, there's really one way to do it, one way to start anyway.
Unless you get a doctor's help, but yeah.
And so we were able to get them back to trusting each other's touch, desiring each other's touch, communicating about it, and re-engaging in sexual intimacy. And now they got twins.
And the really cool part about it, so we had coached them for a long time. They were at a good place with all that. They came to one of our retreats, and they found out at the retreat with us, they live in another state, that they were pregnant. And so we got to be one of the first people after their parents that they told. So that was pretty exciting too, to come full circle and actually see, you could like literally see the tangible result of their connection. And
I think she showed us the pea stick.
I think she took a picture of it. She didn't actually, she had a picture of it. Like positive pregnancy test. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with us. Before we dive into our next topic, I just want to take a quick moment to remind you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. That way, you'll always be the first to know when a new episode drops. And we want to hear from you. What topics are you most excited about? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback helps us create content that you love. We've got some exciting stuff coming your way, so don't miss out. Now, let's switch gears and jump into our next discussion.
The connection here is that the success we have in business is limited to the amount of tension that we can hold, right? And so creating less tension in our relationship, less tension that's existing inside, allows us to handle more external so we can grow and have that opportunity. And I got into mental health through the lens of mindset. That was my first foray into this field, right? What you focus on expands. And so mental health is the foundation for being able to be and feel your best, period. And when you can be and feel your best in your personal life, that translates into your business life.
So when you are coaching, what are, like, they've already done the counseling with her, and
She's an angel. Look at this halo.
I usually don't even have to say a name because I'm only talking to one person.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is fun, right? But Angela's already done the counseling sessions, and so now they're ready to be coached. They have that something. What is that something you start looking for? That says, yes, it's done with counseling, it's ready for coaching, and let's build the business and go forward with that.
When we move forward with a couple, what we experience is that they've typically done their counseling on their own. They've done a lot of that work already, or they've done some sort of personal development work. And so when they come into us, we hold space for counseling in our appointments, and that's always available because we have one on site whenever those types of situations come up. What we really do when we get our hands on them is work on the vision. And from there, we start to uncover and discover all of the different pieces, whether it's a counseling, something that counseling would be more helpful for, something that coaching would be more helpful for. And that happens all in those first kind of month of our sessions when we meet weekly.
And they really flow and blend. It's not, I don't feel like it's clear lines. It's more like we might be talking about something and some emotion comes up and we'll just lean into it and go, okay, what's coming up? Where is that coming from? So we can lean into those moments and work through them so we're not just always pushing them aside or pretending they don't exist. We lean in and then we get through it, right? And then we can get back to, okay, now where are we going next? And just realizing that this work is not linear. Couples come in at one place and they want to get to another, and that's always our goal, is how do we get them there? And it's not a straight line, right? So sometimes we have to go backwards in order to go forwards, right? Because we can't just ignore that. It's still coming up. It's still getting in the way, right? And so we flow with it in whatever's presenting with the ultimate goal of, if you want to be here, we got to get these obstacles out of the way, right? We got to have the action steps and the new tools, and we also need to deal with the past patterns and the things that are holding you back. And we got to do both, or you're not going to go anywhere.
Do you have people set? Sorry. Do you have people set goals, or do you help them do systems, or do you understand the difference between the two?
I would say we do both.
Okay.
So our goals, we have couples create a vision for where they want to be, and that's usually relationship-wise, could be some business goals related in there.
That's where a lot of the intentions are. Companies love intentionally. And so what is your intention? Who do you want to become? So the intention really sets a lot of the tone.
That North Star. And then we talk about steps, goals, strategies to help get there, to get to that North Star. But then systems, I feel like, really come into, like, how are we going to maintain this? Because I can have a goal, again, if going back to a marathon, I have a goal that I want to run a marathon, but I need some sort of system, plan, strategy to make sure I'm actually running on a daily basis or weekly to get to that. And we help couples come up with systems that are going to make their progress be sustained. Even after they're done working with us, they have then the systems to keep carrying them forward.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's like goals Goals are always important, and in personal development, I think that's what a lot of people expect and want. This is my goal. Can you help me get there? And the answer is yes, by working on mental health, by working on the foundations, and then we have systems, but they're the ones that choose what it's going to be. We give them options. This would be a way to do it. This would be a way to do it. What's going to stick with you so you can actually reach this goal that you've got? And for us, a lot of the time, the ultimate goal is to have a more connected relationship, to feel more seen, to feel more appreciated, and to feel more desired. And that goal of any marriage or lifelong partnership is always like somehow the most important thing. And when we reach that goal, every other goal becomes more attainable.
How do you guys do it together? How did you get the tension? Because, like, I know a lot of couples, and there are tensions on you didn't put the milk away today, or you didn't do this, or only focusing on the negative, or some of them are the opposite. Oh, he does everything wonderfully while the other person's carrying everything. How do you guys balance it?
That's a great question. So we work with a lot of entrepreneurial couples, right? Or at least one's an entrepreneur. And we started with, he was the entrepreneur and I as a counselor had the W-2. I was working for a nonprofit and then the school system. So we figured out how to manage one of us being an entrepreneur and the other one having the steady W-2 job. We got that down really well, not without the normal marriage challenges, but got that system down pretty well. And then we decided we were doing so well, we should just go into business together. So I always say we were brilliant enough or crazy enough to do that. It depends on the day, which one it is. But that was, quite frankly, really tough. Like we had the marriage side down really well. We communicated well about that stuff. We had our division of labor, who did what around the house and with the kids and co-parenting. And then all of a sudden we were business partners and we're very different. Like, we complement each other well, but we're different. We have different strengths, different priorities, different skill sets, and we were butting heads a lot in the beginning. And because we were married, what would happen is, if we had some fight or tension in our marriage the night before or that morning getting the kids off to school, then you sit down to have business time and you're like, meh. You're just like annoyed with each other right off the bat, which doesn't create a good business meeting. Or vice versa. Maybe we get in a conflict over something in the business and then it's dinner time and you still feel annoyed with each other about the business thing that happened, even though it's not business hours anymore. So we really had to take a dose of our own medicine. We help couples. That's the irony, right? So we got to use a lot of our own tools and skills to figure out how to work together. And so we help other couples with that, regardless of the configuration, if they're working together or separately. But it involved boundaries, right? How do we set good containers and boundaries for work time versus spousal time, family time? Sometimes that's physical space, right? I'm going to go in this part of the house or put this hat on, and that's going to be my work time. Getting really clear on roles, who was doing what, who has decision-making power in that arena, and then trusting the other person to do their part and their role. So it was challenging at first. And the cool thing about it, anytime I feel like we've gone through a challenge personally, it really does help us help other people better because we've experienced ourselves, we've tried the tools ourselves, we figured out which ones worked, which ones didn't, and then we're able to better help. But in the moment, it can be hard and you can feel like, we're supposed to be helping other couples. Why? So
here's the fun part about working with both of us, or how she heard the question and how I heard it and would answer it are different, right? And this is our unique special sauce, right? Yeah. So managing tensions, you didn't put the milk up, or you didn't call that person back, or there's a wonderful relationship coach, world class, her name is Annie Lala, and I learned this from her. She says, we want to take this from WTF, what the F, what the F, you didn't put the milk away, to I have a dream.
One day you'll put the milk away?
Exactly. Yeah. And so this, at the core, we learn to call each other up instead of call each other out. So instead of, hey, Like, you left the milk out again, or hey, what the
You have a refrigerator over there, use it. Yeah.
I notice your dish is still in here after lunch and it's dinner time, and I don't really like that. It's, hey, I have a dream that you'll start putting that stuff away when you're done with it and not letting it sit until dinner. That would be really great. And so for me, it helps to not feel attacked, keeps my defensive down. Yeah, okay, I can be called up into that. Of course, that would be a nice thing to do, right? So from WTF to I have a dream. Thank you, Annie. Yeah, let's talk about our number one tool that helps us blend our relationship, emotional health, mental health, personally, and also help us understand and put our business in the right containers.
Yeah, so one thing we do is most people in business are used to having business meetings, right? And oftentimes they have a weekly meeting of some sort. So we do that for our business on Monday mornings. We have our business meeting, what needs to get done in the business this week, who's doing what, check in, follow up on things. We also do that for our relationship. So we have a weekly marriage meeting. We do that one on Sunday, so it's a different day of the week. And I would say that has been one of the number one tools that has helped our clients really connect, stay on the same page, lots of things. And so what that looks like for us, we start with gratitudes. So we start with that appreciation. I really appreciate that you did this week, or I noticed you've been stepping up in this way. And that's just a good tone setter. And then we get into an emotional check-in. So we each have a turn to share how we're feeling. Am I overwhelmed? Am I doing great? Am I excited? Whatever it might be. If I'm nervous about this thing, I'm nervous about our finances, whatever it might be, right? I get to share where I'm at emotionally. And then it's a chance for me to ask or him to offer support, right? So yeah, what I could really need this week is just a little grace. I feel like I'm on edge. I feel like I'm overwhelmed. And so I'm going to go ahead and apologize up front if I get snippy. I could just use a little grace this week. Right? Or he might offer, okay, you're feeling overwhelmed. Is there anything I can take off your plate?
Do you want to get an extra workout in this week? Do you want me to take over dinner that night that you were going to do it? Like, how can I support you in taking care of yourself?
Yeah.
So also, when she's at her best, I get her best. Our family gets her best. Our business gets our best. And so that's a really important function of this meeting.
Yeah, and what we found is that by doing that, it really decreases the number of conflicts we have then during the week. Because if he knows I'm overwhelmed and I do get a little snippy maybe, he's going to take it less personally because he already knows, because we talked about our meeting, that, oh, she's just overwhelmed. It's not really about me. Maybe I'll jump in and do that chore of hers she normally does.
Throw chocolate at her.
Chore play.
Start throwing chocolates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Bring me a chai.
That
latte.
might not make it feel better. I literally don't start throwing candy at people because you might piss them off way worse than they're already mad.
I think I would respond.
Well, what kind of candy?
I guess it depends on that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we do the emotional check-in. This is also where if there's any unresolved issues that happened earlier, we can talk about them, or if one of us has been wanting to bring something up, this is our safe space to do it in, rather than doing it at night when you're tired while you're trying to do the dishes and whatever. This is that set time, safe space to do it. Hey, I've been meaning to talk to you about this. This has been bothering me when it comes up, whatever. We can hash out those. And then we get to the logistical side of things, more the business side of life, where we've got 3 kids. So who's taking which kid where? And we've got this. We'll check in on our finances. We'll look at our calendar. We'll do our meal planning.
And for anybody listening, you're like, that sounds like a lot. You're doing it anyways. We were doing this anyways. We were just fractioned about it. It was happening like when we didn't have time 5 minutes before we were taking the kids to school or picking them up, and who's got dinner, what are we doing? Like, these are all the things that it takes to manage a life, and our invitation is to be more intentional with it. And what I loved about it is that I didn't really like the logistics. Like, this meeting, when I started it, was for her. Like, let me just get all this stuff. And at this point, and it's also for me, I've really found a huge value in it. 2 things I love about it. One is that all of our logistics for the week, for the most part, get really clumped into this hour. Usually it's about an hour, right? And so it's not spilling out into places where we could be having connection, or we could be enjoying each other's company, or playing with the kids, right? Thumbs up that one. Okay. The second thing I enjoyed about it was we schedule intimacy during this time. Like I will die on this hill. Every single married couple deserves to schedule weekly intimacy. Doesn't have to be sex. It does need to be intimacy.
Some sort of connection.
And I really appreciate that part of our week.
For sure you do.
Yeah. But part of that is that when we get to logistics, we're scheduling the things that we say are important. The things we would tell people we value. If our calendar and our schedule is not reflecting that, then we don't really value it, right? So this is our chance to go like, all right, we value having family time with our kids. So what are we going to do on the weekend? Oh, Sunday weather's nice. Let's go for a bike ride. And we will schedule it. Okay, we got our intimacy time is Wednesday night or whatever it is. But we put in those things into our schedule that we really value that could get forgotten or put on the back burner because life is always busy. Some kid always needs to be fed multiple times a day. They want to eat, right? And you got doctor's appointments, you got work stuff, right? And so we really want to schedule in the things that are important so they don't get forgotten and they don't get pushed to the back burner.
Seems like a good system.
Yeah, it's really, I feel it takes us about an hour to do the whole thing. It might take you a little longer at first when you're trying it, but I do feel like that hour saves us so much time and inefficiencies or conflict or whatever later in the week that it is worth its weight in gold.
That's the time, like logistical time component. And then there's the emotional component of us being on the same page. How much exhaustion exists in married couples because they're not on the same page and they're spending all of this energy trying to get back to the same page. They're just fighting the stream and the flow. And when we can combine better logistics, better planning with better emotional connection, we become unstoppable.
Yeah, and also trying to figure out who's driving Susie Sunshine to soccer this week. 2 seconds before you're supposed to be walking out the house does not lead to calm conversations.
No.
Usually ends up with somebody chucking keys. At least
Right.
in my mom's house, anyway.
Yeah. What we like to look for is what are simple things to do that can make life go more smoothly.
Set us up for success.
Yeah. And it doesn't make it, they're not easy. Simple is not easy. Right? No. But it is simple. And if we just wash, rinse, and repeat this week after week, we know we're going to be better off. Not perfect, but better off.
No such thing as perfect.
Yep.
Not on earth anyway.
Angela's tried perfect a lot.
I've tried really hard to be perfect. Newsflash, it's not possible. And it's not that much fun either to just try to be perfect all the time. People don't really like people that are perfect anyway. We
Goody
like
two
the messy.
shoes.
Yeah. So
I think this is a really great time to talk about Angela's issues now.
dive into mine. My
you
childhood
like-
wounds, that created perfectionism. Yeah.
For your growth, honey, we're going to talk about all your imperfections.
Oh, good. Sounds.
Don't feel attacked. We just decided to do this. So, with your clients, what are some of the things you do with them that has created success more often than not?
So, first of all, it depends on their goals, right? We take a 3-pronged approach that we think if you're building an intentional life together, relationship, business, all the things, it's the vision. We talked about that before, the North Star. And that really helps us stay aligned, stay on the same page, know where we're going. There's a lot of different ways to get to San Francisco, but you need to know you're going to San Francisco, right? To even get closer, you might end up in Oklahoma. So what's the vision? What's the North Star? And really coming up with a shared one together helps keep us on the same page. So some people don't have that, or maybe they had that. We've gotten some couples recently who are like entering empty nesting phase, and so they were like, we had this dream, the house, the business, the kids, and now we've got the house and the business and the kids are getting ready to leave. What next? We didn't really plan after this. And that's fun to get to explore. So what's the vision? Then there's the strategic life plan. That's partly how we're going to get there. What we want to feel like along the way, too. And some of that, for some couples, they need some different, better systems because life feels chaotic, and the chaos is also getting the way of the third thing, which is the connection. So the strategic life plan not only helps us reach our North Star, but it also just gets things less chaotic in our life and more orderly, where we can be less in survival mode, we can be more relaxed, we can be more playful, we can be more connected to each other. So it creates the space for then, like I said, that third prong is connection. And that's really like the juice. It's like what makes the other two things worth it, right? Because we can have a vision, we can set the goals and get there, but we know plenty of people who have been really successful in their business and life, and then they end up getting divorced because somewhere along the way they were roommates and not actually connected. So different couples come in with different, maybe they're doing really good in one or two of those areas and they need the third one, and so we'll focus on that. But ideally, we're helping them get all three in order.
And it takes, couples come in, they're married, some of them have been married decades. And you can imagine that over that time, over their entire life individually and over the time that they've been married, they've created bad patterns, or let's just say patterns that aren't serving them anymore. And it takes time to unwind those patterns and to practice the new ones. And so we make them commit to doing the work and to invest in it. And on average, it takes 6 months for us to see couples getting to a place where they can start to sustain their new patterns. So committing to 6 months and then charging them for it. What happens if you give somebody a free lunch, what value is there? And when somebody shows up and they choose to invest in their relationship through their pocketbook, right? And most people's investment in their marriage has been their wedding. And then there ain't nothing after that.
Spend a whole bunch of money on a wedding.
So when we can get them to commit to time and money, then they show up more seriously, making sure that they do what it takes to create the change they want to see.
So it sounds like you help people get from, oh my gosh, we might need to divorce, to, hey, we're doing much better now. Right?
Well,
There is that.
and sometimes it's people that are, a lot of times, I would say most of the time, our clients are doing well in most areas, right? They're good, or they're fine to good. And it's that difference between we're fine,
We're a 6 or a 7.
but we want to be like a 9. We're maybe not perfect, but we want to be like a 9. Why not? Or it's we're doing really well. We talked about the couple that had with the in-law that lived with them, right? Like they really were doing well in all the other areas, but they had this life circumstance that was creating all this tension. So sometimes we've got this one thing that is coming up. We love each other, but this thing is really getting in the way, and we want to get this thing out of the way so we can really just love each other.
I don't think they're on the brink of divorce per se. I think they start to worry about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in all the
Good.
areas of our life. Let's just pretend there's 5 key areas to life. We're so good in all of the 4, but this is the one. And man, if we keep coming back and circling back to the same argument, back to the same fight, back to the same down energy, back to the same shame, back to the same guilt, if we keep doing that and we don't figure this one out, like, I'm worried what will happen. And I love them so much, like, we should be able to figure this thing out. And for us, that showed up in our sex and intimacy. I was like, we're crushing every other aspect of life, but every year at our marriage retreat, so once a year we get away, we do this annual marriage planning, and we'd rock every other area, we'd celebrate, and then we'd get to our sex and intimacy, and I would inevitably end up frustrated, and Angela would inevitably end up in tears. And we've been doing this for years, and we're doing this for years. And what happens if this is like another 5 years of this? Like, what is that going to mean for us in our connection and our marriage? So while it wasn't like, oh yeah, we're on the brink of divorce, it was like, man, this is the kind of thing where if we leave it unchecked and we don't work with it, it could create a situation where we start like really feeling like that's the only option. And that's bullshit.
I was just tired of crying every year at our marriage retreat. I was like, I'm over this. We should probably get some help.
Because it's not easy to do this stuff. If it was easy, everybody would do it. This is hard to look at ourselves and to stop defending parts of ourselves and to choose to grow into the newer, better version that can meet the requirements and desires of our life and marriage, that's hard. And we were trying to do it all alone. We were like, oh, you're a counselor, right? I've got all these skills and we do great here, but we should be able to figure this out ourselves. And we weren't. And it wasn't until we joined communities of others that could help us grow and move through that, because they knew things we hadn't. They had already been through this before. They had won this part of their life. And getting a model for that in community was what drove us forward.
Helps you see your blind spots too. Like I said, you can't read the label from inside the bottle, right? So,
Yeah. So it's the good, better, best thing. You're doing good, but you don't feel like you're doing your best. And so there's things you need to do.
Yeah, and I think people in business, entrepreneurs, they really get it too, because like people hire business coaches, they hire accountants to do their books for them, right? They like hire people to help them. They hire a social media manager. Yeah, they hire in those areas. And if we do that for our business, like, why not do that for the rest of our life, our relationship, our mental health, right? Invest in that as well, because our kind of philosophy is if your business is worth that investment, isn't the rest of your life too?
Because you can have a successful business, but if your marriage falls apart, a lot of people end up having to buy partners out of business or dissolving the business because the divorce is expensive, or they got to give half away, or they lose their house, or maybe they get to keep their business and everything's great, but they go through a year or two of a really hard time. And for most married entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial couples, like the vision, asking any of them what's most important, and we ask them all, the vast majority are like, my relationship, my family, my home is what's most important, and that's why I'm doing business. And what we do is help them actually treat that like the priority they say it is.
Yeah. Are there any final things you guys want to make sure you say?
Final things. It's a great question. It all goes, my mind goes to the inspirational, right? You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to settle for roommate phases. You don't have to just settle for fine or accept the other person for exactly who they are if they're not showing up as their best. I think in a relationship, it's almost a duty and responsibility to lift our person up and to hold them to the highest standard, calling them forward into the best version of themselves. It's important.
Yeah, and I think to what you said at first is my dream is for this to be more common conversation about relationships. People don't always have it with their family or even friends. Sometimes they don't really talk about the struggles they might be experiencing. We try to look like everything's okay on the outside. And I think as humans, we're pack animals. We weren't meant to do all this alone. And so we need each other. So finding community, finding whether it's a paid community, like a mastermind, we have those we do, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, a coach, whether it's just close friends you start opening up to. But finding community, finding people that you can show yourself to, be seen, and your relationship too. And because I don't think we're supposed to do it alone.
And this work can feel very vulnerable. To feel vulnerable is to open oneself to being injured or hurt. And that's also the most important thing when taking ownership and responsibility and stepping into this, is the choice to be vulnerable. To stop pretending like you got it all figured out, to stop pretending like everything is great and I'm so solid, but to really invite others in on the journey.
And what we found is that actually when you do that, if I'm going to model and I get vulnerable with someone, 9 times out of 10, it gives them permission then to get vulnerable with me too, right? They reciprocate in that way, and it really deepens the friendship or relationship or whatever it might be.
Yes. I have found that I usually use laughter, right? Because if you're laughing, first, you're listening to what I've said, because that's how you're laughing. But second, you're more likely to remember it, because, hey, you know what? I hadn't laughed in a long time, but when I talked to her and we talked about this, I did laugh. And so that kind of helps people to remember some things and to be, and I say that and people, oh, you're very manipulative. It's not how I'm not doing it. I don't mean for it to be that way. It is just, I have a sense of humor. I am not somebody who has a stick stuck up their butt in that instance. But because of that, I have had people come back to me later and be like, I only remembered that because you made me laugh about it. And so.
Nice.
Love it.
I like that strategy.
I tease the crap out of people with computers that are way too slow. Look, your computer should be faster than mock Jesus. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody that calls you out for manipulating by creating laughter probably just has that trigger. You know what I'm saying? Back to that. Not yours. Not my monkey, man. You can have that one back.